Role-playing games have offered me some of the best gaming experiences of my entire life, and really looking back on it, I've been a big fan of this genre ever since I was a little kid. Not only can the gameplay be fun and addicting with all of the different systems that developers use, but you can be sucked into an entirely different world with excellent stories and various fantasy, sci-fi, or even traditional settings. And that's the thing. RPGs can differ so much from game to game and has so many subgenres. In this particular video though, I'll be focusing on Western RPGs. And because even with that term people can often disagree on what that means, I'm going to keep it as simple as I can and focus on games that are not made in Japan. If JRPGs are your thing though, I also have a video of the top 10 JRPGs for Xbox One, so you can go check that out as well. As always, I'll only be choosing one game per franchise for list purposes, and if I forget any games that you think deserves to be on this list, don't hesitate to let me know. This is only an opinion, and I want to help people discover some of the best Western RPGs on Xbox One. So with that said, let's get into the video of the top 15 best Western RPGs for Xbox One. At number 15, I have The Darkest Dungeon, which is a roguelike turn-based RPG, and the name is very fitting here. Darkest Dungeon has a dark, almost horror-like art style to it, and this game is generally a difficult game, which can be problematic if you like the characters in your party. See, it does have permadeath in it, which may not be for everybody, but it makes the combat feel so much more intense and satisfying for this exact reason. RNG also plays a role in Darkest Dungeon, and one of the more interesting aspects to this game is it also takes into consideration stress levels, where your characters can actually die. It's an interesting feature, but if you like tactical RPG games, Darkest Dungeon is very good. We don't really see very many first-person shooters do the RPG genre justice, but Deus Ex is one of the best of its kind, and if you like cyberpunk games, there isn't much better. In fact, the highly anticipated Cyberpunk 2077 by CD Projekt Red is reportedly influenced by games like Deus Ex. But not only does Deus Ex have great RPG mechanics that has you augment the protagonist, but it also is one of the best stealth-based games of this generation, which is a bit of a dying breed for video games. On top of all that, it has a very compelling story. So if you like RPGs, first-person shooters, or stealth-based games, then Deus Ex: Mankind Divided is the perfect blend of all three. Bard's Tale 4 has seemingly went under the radar for many people. This may be because the initial release wasn't received as greatly as many people wanted it to due to several bugs and technical issues, but with the director's cut, we got the game that we all wanted, fixing many of the problems that it originally had, while also improving the gameplay and adding more content. Bard's Tale 4 has a long and storied history and has a more old-school approach with you moving through a grid-based environment and turn-based combat being in first-person view. Though I would say this is one of the things that Bard's Tale excels at thanks to its clever puzzles throughout the world. It also helps that it has a strong and engaging story with quirky characters. If you like old-school dungeon crawler RPGs, Bard's Tale is a great option. OPERENCIA is very similar to Bard's Tale, and because of that, you can actually interchange the two on this list if you want to. But I really liked my time with OPERENCIA a lot. Much like Bard's Tale, it has an old-school RPG feel to it with first-person turn-based combat and a grid-based environment to move around in. I love the setting in OPERENCIA though, and it has some really unique environments, and the game lets you know this very quick. One of the first places you visit has you in a dungeon that will have you walking underwater fighting giant toads, and it's filled with clever puzzles along the way. The story isn't exceptional, but it almost plays out like a storybook, and it has really strong characters, and the narrative holds your attention from beginning to end. I also reviewed this game, so if you want to hear more about it, you can check out my review. BioWare may have had a few issues in recent years, but don't let their recent blunders distract you from Dragon Age Inquisition being a good game. This is a huge RPG with its open world that will take you nearly 50 hours to play through, and that largely depends on how much of the side quests you partake in. And you can easily find yourself playing this for over 100 hours. Dragon Age Inquisition takes place shortly after Dragon Age 2, and the story can be very political, but what Dragon Age Inquisition does the best is their character progression. It's staggering how much your characters can grow by the end of this game and all of the options you have. The combat itself is also very fun, and you can take on an action-based combat system, but you also have the option of making it a little bit more tactical by slowing time down. It offers you plenty of options, and it's BioWare's best game this generation. Diablo may be more well known on PC, but Blizzard did a phenomenal job at porting Diablo 3 over to console, and it feels surprisingly very good. And that really is the thing about Diablo 3. It's all about the gameplay, and it's incredibly addicting with its loot-based systems that has you continuously improving your character. You can choose from a few different classes of characters depending on what playstyle you like the most, and each class can be built in a plethora of different ways. It's such an in-depth RPG, and as an added bonus, it's also a great multiplayer game. My first playthrough myself, I played co-op with some of my friends, each one of us choosing a different class. Now, I will say that the story isn't the best. It does have some amazing looking cutscenes, and the story is serviceable, but overall, it's the gameplay that will have you so addicted. In a lot of RPGs, we often see ourselves take on the role of a fantasy character, somebody who's ultra powerful or the chosen one, but Kingdom Come: Deliverance shakes up the formula by focusing on a character that in all reality is a nobody. That may sound boring, but it's actually what makes Deliverance so good. Kingdom Come is all about realism, and as you progress, you find yourself getting better, more like something in real life, and even the combat takes on this much more realistic approach. But it's the story that is so fantastic. I myself really appreciate good stories, and Deliverance is one of the best on this list. I would have actually ranked it a little bit higher, but it also comes with its technical difficulties, but if you can look past those, Deliverance is a great game that's worth checking out. Fallout 76 may have disappointed, but Fallout 4 is a staple for RPG gamers. Fallout 4 is a big RPG, and big may be an understatement. It has a large, sprawling world with its own unique atmosphere, thanks to its alternate reality thrusting the 1950s lifestyle into a post-apocalyptic world. And this is what really makes Fallout feel so unique compared to other RPGs. Fallout 4 offers a lot of choice, and as you search for the protagonist's missing family, you will have a direct impact on the world around you, and choice goes far beyond just the story. The way you can craft weapons and guns, the countless side quests, which also can be very alluring, or the way you level your character up. It offers so many choices that you can play this game in countless different ways, and no two playthroughs will feel exactly the same. You can even build your own settlement and help liven up the post-apocalyptic world. By this point, I think many people would consider Skyrim to be one of the all-time great RPGs ever made, with its expansive world that you can get absolutely lost in. And that last point really is no exaggeration. There has never been a game that I've got so sidetracked in as I did with Skyrim. In fact, I played like 40 hours of side missions before I really even started to make progress in the main quest. But that is what Skyrim does so well. Every mission can be so rewarding to go through, and you'll always have a new goal to do. Whether that be getting new armor, joining a new faction, or just finding out why somebody took an arrow to the knee, there is always something that catches your eye. And one thing that is so great about playing it on Xbox is that you have an option of using mods on console. Having mods on the console is such an odd but incredible feature that's supported. You either love isometric RPGs or you find them boring, but Pillars of Eternity is one of the best in the genre. It takes a lot of inspiration from older isometric RPG games, and even the art style has this old school look to it, but it goes to show you that these type of games can still be made today with excellence. And one of its biggest strengths is its writing, though you will need to be okay reading a lot because there is a lot of text here. The narration is really good, but Obsidian did an excellent job with building the world and the lore and Pillars of Eternity. Dialogue with NPCs can be pretty extensive, and honestly, even some of the side characters seems to have a really in-depth story to them that I wasn't really expecting. The combat as well is very rewarding for tactical minds, and if you like these type of games, I'd highly recommend Pillars of Eternity. It's a must-have for fans of classic RPGs. Assassin's Creed isn't really known for being an RPG franchise, which is what was so shocking about Assassin's Creed Odyssey. They decided to change the formula and make it more of an RPG game, and not only did they do a good job with it, but they did a fantastic job. Odyssey has a beautiful world and a very intriguing setting. Odyssey has a huge world too, but it somehow looks gorgeous, as if they never really had to make a sacrifice in making it so large. And for the actual RPG mechanics, they surprisingly did a good job here. You have plenty of choice, whether that be with the narrative and story, skill trees, or pouring a ton of resources into different weapons and armor. There's plenty to offer here. And hey, it also has some pretty fun naval combat as well. ASHEN being up so high on this list may surprise a few people, but I absolutely love this game. ASHEN is very similar to the Dark Souls franchise, but it's unique in its own ways. It has a simplistic but beautiful art style, and it has a very heavy emphasis on cooperative gameplay, to the point you can actually have AI partners tag along with you, though you can turn this option off as I did. ASHEN though is brutally difficult, and the bosses are unique and fun. The level design is superbly done as well, with an open world that you'll traverse several distinct environments that always makes the game feel fresh. Then the combat itself is weighty and precise. Maybe it's just me, but it has been one of my favorite games in the last few years. Divinity Original Sin 2 has become the bar for isometric RPG games. It's far better than it has any right to be. It has a strong story, very well voice acted, the music is outstanding, good characters, and the combat is possibly the best out of any tactical based RPGs ever made. Divinity Original Sin 2 is heavily inspired by old isometric RPGs such as Baldur's Gate, but what ended up happening was Larian Games wound up not only replicating the magic, but also made one of the best RPGs ever made. It also feels very good on controller, which is always a big question with isometric RPGs. This is an excellent game, and I know these isometric games tend to turn some people off, but if you're even slightly interested in Divinity, then rush out and go buy it right now. You will not regret it. It's been a while since Obsidian Entertainment got to tackle a big RPG, so when The Outer Worlds got announced, people were rightfully excited for it, and when it released, it was rightfully praised. Being heavily inspired by Fallout, and of course it's from the studio who made Fallout New Vegas, The Outer Worlds 2 carries a very unique atmosphere and tone. It's a little bit smaller on scale, but with a tighter, more focused world in my opinion. The dialogue is very well written, and you have a plethora of choices to make. It has a lot of strong characters and has an overall enjoyable story. The combat itself is very good, and much like the Fallout franchise, you can affect time to target enemies. But I actually feel the overall combat is stronger than the Fallout franchise. Honestly though, I think The Outer Worlds feels like a mix of Mass Effect and Fallout, and that's the thing. It blends them perfectly into a masterpiece and arguably the best RPG of this generation. And at first place is none other than The Witcher 3, which is arguably not only the best RPG of this generation, but one of the best RPGs ever made. The amount of content in Witcher 3 is absolutely staggering. Whether you want to play the main quest, which has an excellent story, or if you want to do some side quest, which also often has really good stories, and that's the thing. I've seen a lot of games where side quests are relatively boring, but that isn't the case in The Witcher 3. It's just a game that is strong on all fronts. It's a pretty game to look at, has memorable characters, a fun world to explore with plenty of secrets, a good plot, and the expansions, especially Blood and Wine, are super well crafted. The only thing that I could really nitpick is the combat isn't the best. It's still fun, but it may not feel as smooth as some may want it to. Nonetheless, The Witcher 3's praise is well deserved, and I don't say this lightly, but it does deserve to be in that conversation as an all-time great RPG. Anyways though, that's it for this video, but if I didn't mention a game that you liked, let me know in the comments below. And if you liked the video, don't forget to hit that bell notification and subscribe button. Peace out.